Boy, have I got a surprise for you today. We are at a new place, a place that is even new to me. I've gone by this sign that says Kirtland Hills walking trail, open dawn to dusk, several times, and I've never come in here, and I think they just created this. I don't know what it was before. I don't even know what it is. I'm the only one here, but we're gonna explore the trails a little. So I don't know exactly which way to go. It looks like I can go this way. So maybe I'll start this way and see where it takes me. So yeah, kind of exciting to go a new place. Oh, I see another trail there. Some entrance here. This looks like an overgrown place that they recently mowed and created these trails. So kind of cool. I like places that are a little deserted. So let's see what this place has to offer. So, as I just got done talking about how nature doesn't like surprises, I'm surprising you today. And me. So maybe every once in a while it's fine. I like exploring new places. I always have. Oh, I don't have my hiking boots on. I wonder if I should put them on. Let's attempt this without it. Let's see how far we can go. I normally put my Merrill hiking boots on before going out, but it doesn't look very muddy here. So I have my Chaco Chillos on right now, which are not designed for hiking. Well, this place does look like it's been untouched for a while. I don't know how long these trails are. That's what makes it exciting. So yeah, every day is a new day. Every day has new adventures waiting for you. This is mine today. I had an interesting day. Started off by fixing our dishwasher finally. I had ordered the parts 6 months ago, which is sad to say. Hate to admit it, but it's true. And never felt like it was the right day to fix our dishwasher. So we've been hand washing, mostly Teresa, my wife, has been hand washing our dishes every night, and I felt bad. She didn't seem to mind, but there's just been so much going on. It's been kind of a hectic year for many reasons, and just never quite got around to it. Got around to it today, and was very delighted to report that after 3 hours, we now appear to have a functioning dishwasher. It needed a new heating element and a new thermostat. That's what I had diagnosed the problem as being back in January. Bought the parts for about $50 on Amazon and replaced the parts today, and added a new water line with a flexible metal hose that used an old copper pipe water line before, which was a pain because I had to detach that before I could even pull the dishwasher out. So now that I have a flexible water line on there, like a braided type line, it's going to be much easier to fix. It's kind of an old dishwasher. I keep things running. I like to fix things. Alright, same thing with our dryer. Replaced the belts a number of times. I just ordered some new rollers for it because it's squeaking. It's fun to fix things. Maybe this goes back to the whole order thing. Like it's you know, and I was thinking of this as I was repairing some of this stuff, how it's nice to keep things, we say in working order. That's an interesting phrase. Very appropriate, right? Working order. That when something works, there's a certain order to it. A predictability, as we talked about last time, right? There's a certain predictability when something functions as desired or as designed, right? Whatever it is, to use something, you expect it to work, right? There's an expectation, and when you pick it up and use the tool or device or whatever it is and it works, it's a good thing. It's order, right? Working order. So another, I guess, definition of order or insight into order is that it's something that functions as expected. It's predictable, has predictable behavior. We talked about how the universe likes predictable behavior. At least it appears that it works that way. And I guess that flows down to humans as well, is that we like our tools and devices to work as much as possible. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It is important to keep your life in order in the same way as much as possible. Keep it functioning as expected. This is the official trail. I was not on the official trail. So this one actually has some stones on it and a little bench. This is going to be a nice trail, I think, other than the sound of the freeway over there, which is kind of loud right now. So you don't feel very isolated at this point. But what's nice is it doesn't look like many people know this is here. I like coming to places that are less busy. It's more suitable for contemplation. That's Hart Road, I believe, right there. And then I think the freeway is on the other side. Very nice. Very cool. So yeah, let's keep our life in working order. Which, life is only possible because there is order. Right? If everything were complete chaos, life wouldn't have a chance. The only reason the trees and plants grow is because we have water and soil and sunshine, and there's some predictability to the seasons here, as harsh as it may be. Life has adapted to this environment, and that's what adaptation is, right? Is sort of a learning. It's like learning about, we talked about information being the resolution of uncertainty, and that's actually a quote by Shannon, the developer of, the originator, I would say, of information theory back in 1946, 49, whenever it was. And he said, information is the resolution of uncertainty. And I thought that was a really pertinent phrase. Very insightful. When people come along, right, and sort of take, probability was around. People understood probability. They did not understand information. And that phrasing of it as, the world can be an uncertain place. There's a lot of uncertainty in this world. Things we don't know. things that are difficult for us to predict. And the more difficult they are to predict, the more information we get when it happens. We learn something, right? And everything we learn from, we get smarter and are able to predict better next time. And you think that's what learning can be regarded as, right? Learning can be regarded as continuous learning, continuous improvement of our ability to predict the future. I mean, call it for what it is. Anything we learn, whether it's physics or chemistry or how to predict damage in machines, is all based on our ability to have some understanding of causality, what causes things to fail, what causes things to degrade over time. There are causes. I mean, machines fail from one or more damage mechanisms, fatigue, creep, chemical compositional changes over time, stress, causes fracture, cracking, right? And cracking is one of the major ways things fail. Deformation, yielding, collapse. You could almost say there's two primary damage mechanisms. Plastic collapse, which is when the stress becomes so high that the materials bend and yield and out of their designed shape. I mean, buildings collapse because of that. It's when the materials age. And then also cracking, which is like a brittleness, when materials cracks form at some point in time due to fatigue or a variety of other environmental mechanisms or whatever, age itself, and then a crack forms and spreads and can cause material to break. And this is related to a lot of what I do at work, but it's universal. I mean, age and damage are universal. You can think of health as being the absence of damage, and damage accumulates in a number of ways. As humans age, we acquire different damages to our body. Our bodies are machines like any other machine, and we use them, and if we don't treat them well, they don't last as long. If we abuse the body by not eating properly, not exercising, taking drugs, or whatever it is that we may be doing, stress itself, like all of these can cause the degradation of the body if we don't take care of it. And that's what we call age. The body has an amazing ability to recover from certain problems. It's one of the amazing things about the body is it can recover. You can cut yourself and heal, and break a bone and eventually it heals. If you lose a limb, we can't regrow a limb yet. Some animals can, we can't. But we might figure out how to cause that to happen in the future once we understand more about that process. So this is a pretty long trail, which is actually nice. We can do a lot of talking and walking. I don't know where this is going to come out. It doesn't feel like it's going in a circle. It feels like it's going in a somewhat straight line. We'll see what happens. It's exciting. So we might be surprised by the result. But yeah, it's important to keep the body and mind healthy, this organism, as much as we can. Here's another bench. Is that the same bench, or is that a different bench? Are we going in a circle? I don't know. I'm starting to wonder. so I find my way back. Didn't think of that. No, I don't think this is the same bench. This is interesting though. Kirtland Hills. No, this is different. This is a different opening here. Very cool. I am going to have to, I probably should have made a note of where I came in, because now I'm starting to think this is not just a simple trail. So I will, well, we'll walk a certain distance and then we'll turn around. Because yeah, I don't want to get lost. It's possible here. So yeah, I think, you know, we talked a lot last time about all of this information. I've been thinking about it, and there are so many connections between that and living, you know, how we live and, you know, learn, how we live and learn. That's what I thought about too, is that this whole idea of information relies on probability, which is based on the knowledge you already have, right? That's what probability is. It really means nothing unless you have accumulated some knowledge about something. So information is really related to, it is really related to learning process, because I haven't used this word yet, but Bayesian analysis is something else that I've done a lot of work on, which is sort of a probabilistic learning process. You can think of it as how we learn from observations, and it's about evolving probability distributions. So as you start off, well, let's say it's to use some terminology that we could explain. Sorry for being technical again, but it's just popping up. Prior probability distributions, which is before you make observations, new observations, and posterior, which means after. Right? Prior means before, posterior means after. So posterior probability distributions are those that occur after you observe something and you learn. Right? Every observation we learn through observing the world, and we build up knowledge, at least in the conventional sense, from our observations. And those knowledge, that changes the probabilities, right? And this is what I was getting to, is that information relies on, is defined in terms of, information entropy and surprise, which we talked about last time. And I hinted it would become a theme, and I guess it is, because it's still fresh in my mind. Depends on probabilities. It's defined all in terms of that. And it's interesting that probabilities are not a universal thing. Right? Probabilities are based on our knowledge about something. So this is interesting too, because what does it mean then if the universal laws are dictated by information? And again, I'm sort of just working off the supposition of the latest research in infodynamics, where people have said you can derive the laws of gravity and you can explain biology and other aspects of our natural world through this process of information gathering, or this law of infodynamics, which sort of indicates the direction in which information entropy flows, always decreasing. Information entropy, or the disorder, or the unpredictability of the world, is always decreasing. What's interesting is you could regard that as a physical process. So in the case of gravity, particles moving towards each other and clustering in clumps could be regarded as reducing the informational entropy, but it also is sort of based on our knowledge, there's a mental process to this, a mental part, right? The mind plays a role in this because it's framed in terms of probability. Probability is framed in terms of how well we know something. And well, what meaning would this have if it weren't knowledge based, right? If in some sense it depends on our understanding, right? And if we understand more about a system, that increases our knowledge about that system and changes the probability, which changes the information entropy. So the more we know about a system, the more we learn, the more we observe, we change this informational entropy. So what is the connection between mind and this process that we're discussing, which could be the universal law, right, for everything, depending upon our knowledge? So it's an interesting relationship, and it's worth considering and going into. And it also goes back to the fundamental definition of informational entropy that we talked about before, which is sort of the expected value of the surprise, right? And the surprise is what we defined as the negative log of the probability of each possible state of a discrete variable. And you sum over all those states, multiply by the probability of that state occurring, and that's the definition of informational entropy. But what's interesting is if you subdivide those states into more states, so you learn more about something. So then in probability there's these things called continuous random variables or discrete random variables. And we've been discussing discrete random variables, ones that take on particular values, like a coin toss, heads or tails. And I think that is my car. This did loop around. That was a pretty good loop. So I thought we had to walk back, but we don't. We just walked in a large circle, but fairly large circle. That's a decent length trail. We'll probably go around it again now that I know what's happening. Now I'm less surprised. I learned something, right? I learned. There's less uncertainty now. I came here with no idea what the trails were about. We started exploring. We learned with every step we took. And now I have a mental model in my mind about this trail that I didn't have before, which reduces the uncertainty, which increases the probability of certain states, like the length of the trail, its route. So see how just in being here, we've learned something, we've adjusted probabilities, information has been gathered, and informational entropy, right, which is really a measure of uncertainty. That's really what the entropy is, which says in some sense uncertainty decreases over time. Well, it tends to decrease through learning. You know, we learn that adjusts our probability. I guess I went the opposite direction to the arrows. Nice, very nice trail. So I kind of started on the wrong way, I guess. So where does the trail actually begin on this side? We're still learning things. So, you know, but this is what fascinates me, I guess, about this is what is the connection between mind, information, and nature? You know, reality. And there seems to be more of a connection than we realize. And is there relationships between consciousness and all this, right? Or consciousness, which is really are the sum total, right? Our consciousness is our memory, our thoughts. Maybe the trail starts over on this. I don't see any signage. This is what I like to explore, right? I like to pose these questions and sort of rather than jump to the conclusions, just let things ferment. I don't know what the right word is. Grow, bloom. I like the word bloom. To let things bloom. And what comes of that? So what comes of all this? So, like, our brain tends, because it learns, it is reducing uncertainty, right? I know more about this park right now than I did before. There's less uncertainty, and here is where the trail begins. See it now. So this is a big loop. I kind of took a shortcut when we first started off, not knowing where the trail began. So it begins here, it ends over there. Nice. Well, let's do this again. This is nicer than I thought. Longer than I thought, I guess I could say. And the trail itself is more paved. It's not paved, but it's gravelly. So yeah, and that's what life is about. It's a learning process, a discovery. That as we age and we learn, uncertainty is reduced. And the universe is happy. But what's interesting is the universe isn't uncertain about itself. It's our knowledge of it that is uncertain, and that seems to evolve in a certain direction. Like this learning process that's occurring in the brain may explain why the brain does what it does. That's the function of the brain, to learn through experience and observation, in order to better predict phenomena, to enhance our survival. Right? I mean, as an organism, we can think of it that way. The brain is evolved as a survival mechanism. That we learn what to do. We learn how to behave to survive this environment. Right? And we've evolved in this environment, and the brain has evolved. So the brain is suited for this environment. It isn't so suited probably for another environment that may exist, say, on another planet. Or even, the human brain is fairly similar across all the different, regions of this planet, because we really, the human family is relatively young. But I imagine it could form splits and, specializations and evolve in different directions if given enough time. But the planet isn't different enough. Tribes have adapted, right? I think the word adapted is better than evolve. Adapted to different environments, different phenomena, but we all share essentially the same human mind, right? All of humanity. That's why this mind is not mine. I don't own this mind. I am not separate from this mind. That's the illusion we create for ourselves. How can I be separate from this brain, from this mind that is me? It contains all my memories. So the brain contains my memories, which is me. If without these memories, I would have no concept of me being a separate entity. It's only because of these memories that sense exists. That's so important to see, because otherwise we like to separate ourselves from these memories as if we are somehow different. And then that identity causes a lot of the strife and conflict in this world, because then we see ourselves as having a separate identity than another person, and then we fight because of those separate identities, when in fact we share the same human mind. Not we share, we are the same human mind, the same human being, just like two different instances of the same, human being. So when you see it that way, there should be no conflict, because you're not two different individuals. You're one humanity. And that's a form of learning too, right? That to learn who we are by observing this world. And this is also why it's important to learn by observation, to learn from the world, not from ideas that people have given you, because that's how we've survived, right? That's how animals adapt and evolve, is by learning from the environment that they have to survive in, which is the truth, right? The environment nurtures you, or you either learn to survive, learn what to eat, and how to stay warm in the winter, and all the various things. And every animal species has found its own way of adapting to its environment to do that, and we are no exception. Although something different may have happened with our brain, or maybe not. There's some deer. Jumping around. Getting a little scared from me. So yeah, these things. So we can get lost in ideas, even if the idea is information, or information entropy, right? And we can start thinking about life in those terms. But it limits things, because now all that is limited knowledge. It could be useful. We could learn something that could help us survive, and maybe help the planet survive. But there's a different form of learning. I hope those deer don't run in the road. That's all I want them to do. Which is learning from observation directly. Not through words. And perhaps this is, getting to the heart of it all, which is, human beings survived long before language developed. And maybe where humanity took a wrong turn is language. We think of language as a good thing. It allows us to communicate, but language may, in fact, be the root of all of our problems, because it's given us a way to create these ideas, which are intimately tied to words, and those ideas we take as reality, rather than reality itself, truth itself, which is seen through direct observation, right? Direct perception of the world, not the words we give things. So maybe there was a time when human beings saw trees directly for what they were, right? Amazing things, right? And maybe sometimes saw them as gods and personified them, because they saw the richness in the trees that we don't see now. We just see a tree and, oh, that's a tree. Walk right by it. I saw it. But I'm not stopping to really look at any one of these trees in the way that I probably should, to really know that tree, in all of its glory. And that is what language has, the crutch that language has provided, is we give a name to a thing, and then we think we know it. And we stop observing it after we name it. The naming process is often the end of learning, because we just move on by. Without the names, we would always be aware, just aware of what's happening in every moment as it's happening. And it's a different form of learning. more direct. And maybe that's what awareness brings us when we stop using the words, but we observe without the words. And it's a question, can we observe without the words? And when you observe without the words, you don't stop. It's not about reaching an endpoint where it's enough. Observing is always happening. It's never stopping. And it also means learning is never stopping. It's like a continuous learning all the time. And not in the same sense of forming memories and knowledge, which is in a lot of ways words. Right? Knowledge is accumulated in terms of memories, which are very often, even images, right? Images, not just words, but images of any kind. Oh, it's a little baby squirrel. It's a cute little squirrel. Very small. Like when you're not paying attention, you're missing things, right? Like now I'm talking, which is distracting in a way, and distracting me, but like I'm still, I'm catching whiffs of like the smell of the plants, and seeing a lot of variety of things, everything green, just like the main impression is green, right? Everything green. Green is my favorite color, I suppose, if I had to pick a favorite, but I would say green and blue are my two favorite colors. The color of nature, right, is mostly green, and the color of the sky, which is blue, right? And the sky is like, I guess some people have called, Mother Earth and Father Sky, and they are really two very interesting. The green is here on the ground, right here with us. We're surrounded by green, and the sky is away from us. It's far away, but it provides sunlight. It provides the energy for all life on Earth from the sun, right? Without that, nothing would be alive down here. And that sun that just continues to, react to thermonuclear fusion that occurs continuously and has so for millions of years, has provided the energy for all life to form here. And here we are, right? And you could say in a moment of time, a blink of an eye, in the time scale of the planet, in the universal time scale, even less than that. But we are alive right now to observe what's happening now. And again, this idea of time may just be our own construction. If there only is now, then there is no now from 1,000,000 years ago and now in the future. There's only now. That's all we know is now. We don't know the past. We can imagine what the universe was like in the past, but even in that imagine just how limited that imagination is. We can't imagine the immensity of the universe. We can't imagine the immensity of the now. The universe as it is now. I mean, what's around me is amazingly complex and also very simple at the same time, right? There's a peace to it. There's a beauty to everything in its stillness. Nothing's jumping out at me at the moment. Like there's a sense of harmony, right? Everything is in harmony with everything else. And every moment there's a continuity to it. While things are changing constantly, everything's changing constantly from moment to moment, but there is a continuity in a sense, right? I see it's the same plants I saw last time I walked around here. I see them again in the same trees, maybe slightly different. But that's what gives us this sense of permanency, is that we don't look close enough, right? That if you don't look close enough, things look like they're static. They look like they're not changing. That's just because we're not looking carefully, right? If you look under a microscope at anything, you see it constantly changing and moving. It's all occurring. Time-lapse photography is really good for that, right? You take a time-lapse photograph and then speed it up, and then it's like amazing, right? Watching an apple rot with a time-lapse photograph, and you see it happening so quickly, and it's happening when you're looking at it, but you don't see it because it's so slow, and our perception of time doesn't allow us to see things that occur very slow. So that's why right now everything's changing, right? If we took a time-lapse photograph and sped it up, the change would become very evident. It's just not evident right now because our perception is limited, right? And that changing process, that continual creation, right? That is creation. That process, if you want to call it, of constant change. One moment is ending and the next moment is beginning, or one continuous moment, however you choose to look at it, or don't look at it. Don't choose to look at it any which way, just look. There's no choice in observation, it just is, to see what is directly, right? Without all of this confusing language or confusing ideas, right? There is nothing to be confused about, because it is what it is. It's only words that, and our ideation and our attempt to formulate models of the universe that confuses us. So this is trip number 2. Where are we at here, time-wise? 8:30. I think it may have been about an hour so far. I don't know. So we're somewhere different today, but I have a feeling I'm going to be coming back. So we'll be seeing more of this place. This is nice. It's very immersive. There's a canopy of trees above. When you look up, you see the golden light. The sun shining on the leaves up there, but down here you feel like you're in a womb. You know, you're protected in some sense by all the trees, by all the, vegetation, everything. And you're on the ground, and there's a sense of stability to standing on the ground, that's beneath us firmly, providing support. And this is Ohio. For anyone not familiar with Ohio, so much of Ohio is this, forested. And it was much more so when people first came here. So many of the old growth trees were cut down to make room for farmlands first, right, and all the homesteads, and then for the roads and the cities and the urban areas. We've lost so much of this, but there are still remnants. This is not an old growth forest. There are old growth trees at Holden Arboretum in the Bowl Woods, in the working woods across the street, which we've been before briefly, but I didn't make note of that then, that there are some old trees there. Old growth being that they are the original trees, or from before human beings spoiled it, which we tend to do a lot of. But these are still nice trees. Much smaller though, right? Much newer. But give them enough time, and I see some big trees back there. I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't a few old growth trees somewhere in here. One they forgot to cut down. There's a big one there. This is the other thing, just the shame in some sense of how humans treat this planet, Mother Earth, as something they can just use in any way they want, with very little respect for it, very little thought given to continuity of the planet, and that the things we do affect the planet, which we rely on. There needs to be an awareness of our relationship with nature, and that we need nature to survive, but we also have to treat it properly. Just like we talked about the body earlier, you have to treat your body properly to live. We have to treat this planet right, or we won't live. And what I guess I don't understand is some people that seem to be ignorant of that. Like that they don't believe anything, right? They don't believe that if you mistreat the planet that it will cause harm. Why would you not believe that? If you mistreat your own body, you cause harm to your own body. Why is it hard to believe you mistreat the planet, you cause harm to the planet? Like, it's common sense if you look at it. I mean, you can argue about a lot of things, but you can't argue about that. But people do. They don't believe it. And I guess it's just because they don't want to change behavior. They want to just continue behaving how they want to behave without seeing the consequences of their actions. Which is very strange, because if you live that way in your house, if you never took out the trash, you know, if you chop the wood, you know, to heat your house, you cut pieces of wood out of your house and burnt them in the fireplace, I mean, you wouldn't have a house before long. Like, these things that we do to the planet, we don't think about it, but if you did it to your own house, you would clearly see the problems with these things. So just, it's a responsibility, I guess. It's just and it's just a seeing, right? It's a seeing. Most people don't see the harm, because just like we didn't see the change happening around us, how I talked about time-lapse photography, we can't perceive changes that occur very slowly. You can't see the hands on a clock moving because it moves so slowly. So you could conclude that the hands on the clock are not moving because of your limited perception. And the same thing here. We may not see in real time what's happening to our planet, but it's happening, right? And if you speed the clock up, if you compare, you know, what's been happening over decades and centuries, you see the pattern evolving, forming, right? But you have to open your eyes to see that. If you keep your eyes shut because you don't want to see truth, you won't see it. And this isn't about opinion. This is about fact. This is about truth, right? Which I've never understood, how people can argue about truth. And I suppose you can. Suppose you can pretend that there's no sun in the sky and just say that's just all an illusion, but most people would not agree with you there. And to me, that's a form of insanity, right? To not see truth is perhaps the definition of insanity. To see truth is to be sane. Whether that truth is in front of you as you're walking, I mean, the truth of the trail, the truth of these trees, the truth of where I am right now is an evident truth. I can deny what is true, but that is an illusion that I'm creating for myself. And that's what humans do, create illusions and delusions. And then live in a world of make-believe rather than a world of truth. And the only way to survive on this planet is to live in a world of truth, because the truth, you know, will set you free. The truth also, if you're not careful, right, if you ignore truth, it can kill you. If a berry is poisonous and that's true, and you eat that berry, you will likely die or become very ill, right? Do you deny that truth? You can, but then you'll die, right? So life relies on a relationship with truth. Like, living things can't continue if they don't adhere to truth. And this can be another sign that if we don't return to truth, humanity will die. The planet may continue living, right? We will likely do such harm to the planet that it will destroy us as humans and take a lot of life on this planet away as well, but the planet will adapt. Given time, order will be restored, but at the moment it seems as if we're on a very treacherous path to self-destruction. And if human consciousness doesn't change, wake up, right? Wake up to that. Which is what I don't understand. A lot of people use this word woke as if it's a bad thing. And to be awake, to me, means to be aware of what's happening. To sleep, to be not awake, is to close your eyes to truth. If you open your eyes to truth, you're awake. Right? So I don't know why people think that's a bad word. To me, to be awake or woke is a good thing, because it represents an opening of the eyes to truth. The truth to the harm we're doing to this planet, or the truth to the harm that we're doing to other people. Like, to just see these things for what they are, which are facts. You can argue about a lot of things, but you can't argue about facts. You shouldn't be able to if you're a sane person. And this is where we are right now, though. We are in a position where people argue about facts, alternative facts, right? I mean, what the heck is that? You know, and this isn't the political perspective, right? This is called, do you see truth or not see truth? And do you see what's right in front of you? What your eyes are seeing is truth. What your ears are hearing are truth. I mean, Jesus said, you have eyes but you do not see, you have ears but you do not hear. And that's what's happening right now. People are just not aware. They're not seeing, they're not using their eyes, their ears, and this will be our downfall. This will destroy us. It's evident. This is what you see if you open your eyes, and it's disheartening, but at the same time, it's truth. Again, like, we can't deny the truth. And perhaps if human beings could wake up to what's happening and understand that we're not living with love and compassion for the earth, or for other human beings, or for other animals for that matter, or for the plants or environment. We are not living with love and compassion to this planet that nurtures us, then we will be destroyed. And that is just the fact. And the fact that will happen regardless of whether someone believes it or not. Right? This is not about belief. Belief has no place where fact is concerned. Right? Truth is not belief. So it doesn't matter what you believe. You can believe that the environment is being destroyed, or believe that it isn't, right? You have that choice. But observe what's happening. Observe changes in our environment, changes to the planet. Like, what's happening? Look at how human beings are behaving, and how we're treating each other so poorly, and the wars that we're having, and the fighting. These are facts. Observe it. And then, do you deny that? You can't deny the violence, the increase in violence in the world. You can't deny the facts of climate change, right? When the facts are presented, you may not believe in the theories. You may not believe in the causes, right? You may differ about that, but don't argue the facts when you can measure a temperature and see how that's changing over time. That is a fact. That is a measurement, right? And so it's, you know, I don't want to make this political. I guess this isn't political to me. That's the strangest thing to me, is that facts have been politicized in our current world, and to me that's insanity. And I think the world has gone insane. And I think this is why we need to return to sanity. Return to truth. Return to agreeing on facts. We can argue about causes, but you can't argue about facts. They are what you observe, what you measure. The facts should be indisputable. And then we may argue about what to do, right? What to do about that, but not what is. You can't argue what is. It's what is there in front of you. So, I mean, we just walked through truth, right? We walked through a beautiful wooded area, and all of this is alive still, and that is good. That is a fact too. Everything is alive. How long is it going to stay alive? Right? And we have to observe what's happening to understand this and to learn. And we talked about uncertainty, that, you know, the universe wants us to understand it. You know, that is perhaps our function, is to understand this world and this planet, and that we have evolved to this point because we have the ability to understand. Well, let's use that ability to understand. Use all of our senses, our brain, the intelligence that we have, to solve these problems that we have. Why don't we? It's never been clear to me. If we can send people to the moon, and we can build amazing phones, but we can't feed people, or we can't figure out a way to prevent the world from collapsing. And now, you know, there's AI data centers which are popping up everywhere. And you know, our demise is being accelerated, whether you believe it or not. And as much as I use AI for work, and this is the problem, right? It's just becoming almost unavoidable, but we're not thinking of the consequences. You know, the owner of Anthropic, I think just yesterday, I read an article or saw an article that said he's trying to put a pause on the development of AI, like a temporary pause for all AI companies to say, we need to slow down or pause this, what's happening, because it's accelerating so rapidly that change is occurring so fast, we're going to destroy ourselves. And, you know, like, all that's happening now, right, is people are just thinking, no, we need more. We're greedy. We need more. We need more AI data centers to power this monster of AI that we've created that could overrun us, right? Maybe that's the better thing. You know, I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I don't know if it's better or worse, but it's happening so fast that we're not really able to step back for a while and think. And I don't think we've ever done this. I mean, humans tend to just move, right? To move without thinking, without considering the consequences of actions. And I think that is very dangerous. And because of where we are now, right? And I was just reading about how much water is consumed by these AI data centers, and that I think they said like the amount of water consumed to just have AI write like 100-word email for you is like a bottle of water, right? And there's countries that are going through droughts, and water is going to be consumed for AI to satisfy this monstrous desire that we have for information, right? I mean, this is, you know, information, but it's disorderly, right? And in some sense, we talked about how the universe wants to simplify itself. It wants to become simpler, to have less degrees of freedom, right? To have more correlation, more order. And what's happening is almost the opposite. It's exploding. You know, the information content is becoming more complex and just being used in ways that are not beneficial. It is just very scary what's happening, and it's every day it's happening. And again, we talk about not seeing change, right? That when change occurs so slowly, we don't see it. And we need to wake up, though, right? We need to see